Good afternoon. Well, it's Friday and we managed to get out. Yesterday I couldn't. It was late. I had a late meeting, so it was dark out, and we had some internet problems. But today we're here. The temperature was 99 off and on today. Right now it's 80 because we had a hell of a rain shower not too long ago, and the temperature just changed. So this is a special treat. And I noticed that the road beneath my feet is there are rivulets from the rain. So anyhow, it's nice out. So what's going on? That's going on. And some people have asked me a couple of questions about some things that are going on, and I'll try to remember to talk about them. Jack Smith is Johnny on the money here. He's resisting the efforts by Trump or Nauta to delay the trial, particularly way down the road. And there was an argument between Trump, Nauta, and the court to kick this down the road until after the election. And I think that's a non-starter. And as for them not being able to show up Friday, there was, cross purposes going back and forth. But as I understand it, they're in court on Tuesday. So the court, that is Judge Luce Cannon, has not indefinitely continued it. So we don't have the kind of offense we're anxious about her recommitting as compared to her early days in the case, when she went out of her way to be favorable toward Trump. So I think that's good news. Now, among some of the claims that the defense was making, that is the Trump defense and the Nauta defense, was, you can't possibly, this is a complicated case, it's going to take more than a year, etc., etc. And Jack Smith came back and said, well, he gave examples of cases that were complicated that went pretty quickly. And one of them was in the Eastern District of Virginia, and those of us who deal with the Eastern District of Virginia, it's called the Rocket Docket, because cases move quickly there. And I've been in some of the cases, and they've been reasonable. Not always, but the judges have listened if there was good reason or cause to delay. And I think that perhaps the Trump defense parties leaned a little too hard on the judge, so they sort of backed themselves out of an advantage in the case. Now, somebody's asked me, what about local counsel? There's a procedure. I'm admitted in 4 different states, New York, D.C., the District of Columbia, Virginia, and West Virginia. But I've appeared in quite a number of other states elsewhere, from Hawaii to the Virgin Islands and places in between. And the way you do that is you make a motion pro hoc vice, which is just the Latin to say that you're making an appearance for a single case for a client who thinks that you may or may not have particular talent or get along with the client, and they want you as opposed to somebody from whatever state you're in, California, Hawaii, or wherever. And in order to make that work, you have to have a local counsel that vouches for you and says you're okay, but they're not expected to be the lead counsel. That is to say, to handle the case. They're there basically to open the case up and get you on your way. So in that sense, the barbs for the local counsel who agreed to be the local counsel, I believe, at the courthouse at Fort Pierce, she is not perhaps expert in the different areas of the law that will be required by the defense/prosecution of this case. So it's a little much to expect that she could handle the case, or that she was expected to, or that's what she signed on to. So, but the effort by the defense to just try to kick it off to infinity and beyond, well, that's just too much, and that's just not going to. Well, it hasn't happened so far. We'll have to watch and see. But Jack Smith's been Johnny on the spot, and he's pushed it back. And the judge seems to be moving in a more traditional manner as a judge. So we'll have to wait and see. On other Trump sightings, it appears that Jared Kushner testified before the grand jury, according to the Times. Some other people have not corroborated it, but it's out there. And supposedly among the questions he was asked was, did Trump really believe that he won, or did he understand and believe he lost? Now, I have two views of this. First of all, we have plenty of evidence out there that he knew precisely that he lost, that he was told that. And then even the night of the election, there's that famous conversation with Rudy Giuliani, and he gave him advice of 4 words: just say we won. Now, yes, Rudy was deep into his drink that evening, but earlier than that, Bannon had said, if we lose, we're just going to say we won. And so that strategy was considered before election night and pursued afterwards. So why would you have Kushner in to say, oh, you know, Trump believed he really won? And I've talked about this notion of somebody believing something, and believing that he won, and being separated apart from the overwhelming evidence that he lost by all the denials of potential fraud, all the court cases that were dismissed, all the electoral boards that weighed in with the numbers and counted and recounted. You know, let's look at it this way. If Trump truly believed that, then he's not psychologically capable, does not have the cognitive resonance to understand what's going on. And so for that reason, he shouldn't be president. But we have an objective test. And the objective test is everybody in the world knew Trump lost except the crazy Republicans who chose it as a device to see if they could do an end run. And the end run was an insurrection. The end run was a traitorous conduct. The end run was to substitute our democracy and republic with an autocracy, with a monarch, with a person as unreliable as Trump, to choose the law by whim rather than by the Constitution or the law. So, you know, that's pretty outrageous, I think. Now, Trump, by the way, continues to be desperate, and he's brought 2 actions to the Supreme Court in Georgia to get rid of the prosecutor, because he says that, that prosecutor, you know, she's a Democrat, she has a conflict, we can't possibly have her. And then, and the other thing is, well, if she used that earlier grand jury, that would spoil the new grand jury. And there are, in fact, 2 new grand juries that I don't think have any inability to indict, unlike the, quote, investigative grand jury, which Trump is talking about. I would guess both of those are going to be thrown out, and I think the significance of both of those cases by Trump will be thrown out. But I think the significance of it is the desperation by Trump to make all these motions, to fight the way they are, and I think that that's significant, because it also suggests the information they're getting from, what is that noise? That's interesting. The information they're getting from the prosecutor makes it sound like they're going forward, and something's going to happen. And so maybe the imminent indictment is becoming more imminent, or at least more likely and realistic. So we have that. The thing that I've been involved in labor law for with and against certain unions, with and for individuals, and labor-related matters over the years. Fascinating area of the law. And I have some trouble wrapping my mind around. I don't have any trouble with the right to do it. We have the writers' strike, and we have the actors now out on strike. And in my experience with people that I've known in acting or observed, is that it's the most paralyzing desire to be in acting and to suffer a great deal in order to get on the screen, on TV, or in the movie houses. And I don't know if it's become more or less difficult with streaming to get a decent gig. And the people who are starting have a lot of trouble getting decent wages. And writers, it's a similar problem because not everybody evaluates the writers. We know stories like F. Scott Fitzgerald went out to Hollywood to make money doing it, was apparently miserable at it. I mean, his writing was always good, and I suppose the other trouble about that writing is, unlike a book, maybe you're told more what you should say. And then anybody who's a director wants to put his or her stamp on the movie or production on TV, and so they write and rewrite literally on the set as the thing is evolving. Okay, so this is a long way around the bend to say I'm anxious for the working men and women who are writers and actors that striking works out for them. Now, I believe in the strike as a tool of labor, but I just don't know if it can work in an industry in which there are more people out there hovering for positions than those that have them. And I mean, Harrison Ford's a great example. I mean, for years, he became an excellent carpenter because he couldn't get gigs or a sufficient number to live on. And, I think of him in, I think it was Witness, where he has to protect a young boy and himself from being killed because of a killing that happens at Grand Central Station. And he actually was doing carpentry in that movie. And I thought that was kind of an ironic gig for him, because that's what he did until he got a way to live as an actor. And how many of them have these kinds of stories? So I think it'll be very interesting to watch how that unfolds. And it's going to make a big statement among labor unions everywhere, how to make a strike work, particularly in so sensitive an arena as writing and acting. So I hope it works out for them, because these people have amazing talents and go through quite a great deal of suffering in order to have the opportunities to entertain us in the mind, and by how they demonstrate themselves and how they make us suspend our disbelief and take us to different places. So anyhow, that's kind of off my beaten path, but I thought it was important to mention. The Republicans are up to their old tricks in Washington, D.C. They're cutting funds to D.C. for things D.C. wants to do. Like, for example, they have traffic cameras. And so Republicans don't think they should have the money for traffic cameras. And you may remember that they overruled district law having to do with what to do about guns in the district, which is no small problem. So where are we? We are moving through a chaos, but there are lines that we can follow toward success. Jack Smith has shown himself to be flexible and a fighter, and to do it with dignity. We're hoping the Georgia prosecutor is going to get out there and finally drop the bomb on Mr. Trump and whomever else she has in her viewfinder. And then we also have the the question of what's going to happen with the civil suit involving more defamation by Trump of Ms. Carroll. And the courts have said justice does not have to be involved in this case, so Trump is on his own. So this kind of squeezing, I think, is good for all of us. And if I were a Republican, which is pretty hard for me to imagine, and perhaps for you, I wouldn't want him anywhere near the ticket. And, I don't know what insanity would make me think that he was a good bet to have an ability to pull me along. So there it is. So be careful of the heat. It's everywhere, and it is dangerous. And even for healthy people, it's dangerous. And there are people who are suffering, and this is only going to get worse. It'd be really nice if people started paying attention to this who are in government and started spending some money and adopting policies that would give us a fighting chance to avoid having, instantaneous, spontaneous combustion and just blow up in fire. And it's not an impossible possibility. People who are falling on the ground are getting bruised and scarred in some of the places where heat is now. And people are watching down the southwest to see if we're going to break the 134 degrees, which I think is the highest temperature we've had in America. So that's my talk for today. I'm glad it's 80 degrees out, and I'm glad I could join you and that you were around for me to talk from my cathedral of trees. All the best. Bye-bye.